Hello students. Hello students. Welcome to another chemistry class with Mr. Solomon. Today's lesson is on test for iron 2 ions. To test for iron 2 ions, basically you need a sample which contains iron 2 ions. You need the reagent sodium hydroxide. And to start, you place the sample into a beaker, completely placed into a beaker, add some water, and then you try to stir. Why we stir is to make sure that the sample dissolves. We want to find out if the sample dissolves or not. After stirring, I will observe. Looking at the bottom of this, I see no particles are remaining. That means sample 2 is soluble in water. And I'm going to report that this part of the experiment. On the board here you see sample C is this sample that contains iron 2 ions, and I've reported on the board here that I dissolved it in water. And you see, C dissolves. The sample C here is soluble, so I'm reporting under observation that it dissolves. And it gives me a pale green solution. Then inference, the salt is soluble. So I'm saying that what the sample I have here is soluble. It's a soluble salt. It can also be a mixture of the soluble salt. Then the next is to take some of sample C in a test tube. Sample C in a test tube here. I'm going to add sodium hydroxide. This is sodium hydroxide. I'm going to add it in drops first. When I'm adding it, I'll make sure it touches directly on the sample, not on the walls of the test tube. When I add, observe, what do you see? You see dirty green precipitate. Dirty green precipitate. So I'm going to report the dirty green precipitate when I add in drops. Let me add more. You see dirty green precipitate. I'm going to report that dirty green gelatinous precipitate is observed. Gelatinous means that the precipitate is not like a powder, it's like a cream. That's what we mean when we say dirty green precipitate. It's like a cream, not like a powder. Then I'm going to infer. The inference is I'm suspecting iron 2 ion, Fe2 plus. I'm also suspecting Cu2 plus. Then, in order to confirm that the sample I have here is iron 2 ion, that the sample contains iron 2 ion, I'm going to allow this reaction mixture to stand for some minutes. When I allow it to stand, I'm going to observe that the precipitate is going to turn reddish brown, which confirms the presence of iron 2 ion. If you look closely, you will notice that the dirty green precipitate is already turning brown, reddish brown. And this is as a result of iron 2 ions being oxidized by atmospheric oxygen into iron 3 ions. And with your SS2 chemistry, you were taught that iron 3 ions are reddish brown in color. Do you remember the color of rust? Reddish brown. That's what we're seeing here. The reddish brown nature of this precipitate here shows that iron 2 ions, which are dirty green in color, are being changed by atmospheric oxygen into a reddish brown color. And this is a confirmatory test for the presence of iron 2 ions. And that is illustrated more here. The chart on the board summarizes. The first test, we reacted the sample with water. We got a soluble substance. That is sample C dissolves, giving us a pale green solution, showing that sample C is a soluble salt or a mixture of soluble salts. Again, we picked sample C in a test tube. We reacted it to sodium hydroxide. It gave us a dirty green gelatinous precipitate. which we saw. And I explained that gelatinous means that the precipitate is not like a powder, but like a cream. And that we suspect iron 2 ions or copper 2 ions. Then again, we allow the reaction mixture to stand for some time. Do you see that the precipitate, the dirty green precipitate, is gradually turning into reddish brown precipitate? That confirms the presence of iron 2 ions. Thank you.